I've been obsessed with retiring early for years now, and if you've been watching this channel, you know exactly what I'm trying to do. Build enough wealth to escape the corporate grind and live life on my own terms. But here's the thing that most FIRE content gets wrong. They act like there's only one path to early retirement. Save $2 million, withdraw 4% a year, and boom, you're retired at 40. But that's not realistic for most of us, especially if you're in your 20s, living in an expensive city, and trying to figure out how to make this work without inheriting money, having a trust fund, or selling a startup for millions of dollars. So today I want to break down 7 feasible strategies for early retirement within America. Real strategies that actual people are using right now, and then I'll tell you exactly which one I'm going to be doing and why. Because I'm not here to sell you anything or pretend I've already have it all figured out. I'm literally building this plan right now, documenting the process and showing you exactly what's possible. And look, some of these strategies are going to sound very extreme. Some of them are going to sound too conservative, but that's the point. Early retirement isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about finding the approach that matches your risk tolerance, your lifestyle preferences, and your actual financial situation. The first strategy is going to be called LeanFIRE. LeanFIRE is exactly what it sounds like, retiring early on as little as possible. We're talking about a net worth of $400,000 to $800,000 and an annual spending of $20,000 to $35,000. Now, before you say that's impossible, hear me out. This strategy works if you're willing to make significant lifestyle changes. Move to a very low cost of living area, some states like Tennessee, even parts of Texas, North Carolina, maybe even somewhere in the Midwest. You buy a small paid off home, like you paid off, or even just having a mobile home. You eliminate every single major expense you can. There's no car payment, no debt, minimal discretionary spending. And then here's what it'll actually look like. You have $600,000 invested in index funds. You use like a 4% withdrawal rate. That's like $24,000 a year. You pick up some part-time work or turn a hobby into some income, maybe for like $6,000 to $10,000. That'll get you to like $30,000 a year. So you have that paid off house. You pay your property taxes and insurance. You're pretty much cooking at home exclusively. You're probably going to be using Affordable Care Act subsidies to afford health insurance, which is very risky because I know that is going to be getting pulled back a lot in this administration and over the next few years. And at this income level, you will be paying near nothing as long as the coverage stays the exact same as it is now, but I wouldn't rely on this. You could go without health insurance too, which I also would not recommend. So is this some glamorous way to retire? Absolutely not, but it works. And for some people who genuinely don't care about lifestyle inflation or just want out of the corporate world and just want to be off the grid, live as lean as possible, this is the quickest path to freedom. Obviously, you need minimal housing costs, extreme frugality, leveraging government programs. And if any one of those breaks, like if ACA subsidies go away, which is the Affordable Care Act, this strategy becomes much harder, but that is something I'll address later in this video. And this is something that I personally don't recommend. This route honestly just even sounds sucky, and you are kind of extracting a lot of quality of life, but it does get you out of working 40 hours a week. You get to work on your own time, live off the land, maybe even on a small plot of land, build a tiny house. Like, this is extremely feasible in the United States. And you could probably do this in your like 30s, even young 40s, but this isn't what I want. This isn't living. This is kind of just surviving, which isn't my goal entirely. Now there's BaristaFIRE. This is probably the most realistic early retirement strategy for most people, and it's what a lot of younger FIRE people actually do. And the idea is pretty simple. You save enough to cover most of your expenses through passive income, and then you work part-time just enough to cover the gap and or have health insurance. So your target would be anywhere from $400,000 to $900,000, and the annual spend would probably be around $30,000 to $50,000. So let's say you have $500,000 invested in index funds, which probably gives you about $20,000 a year in passive income. Then you work part-time, maybe only like 20 hours a week just to make $20,000 or $30,000 a year. That part-time job also provides you health insurance, which is really massive in this day and age. And I'm not saying you have to work at like a Starbucks. Like, you can do your own side hustle thing inside of this, but for the health insurance aspect of it, you probably would want to stay at like a company or a corporation. Ones that famously offer health insurance to part-time workers. I know like Trader Joe's does it. I know Starbucks does do it. Costco. I know there's some like contract positions online that sometimes do it, but this is going to be really rare to find, especially right now. And if you do work freelance, you would have to buy your own coverage. But if you are only working part-time and it's something you actually enjoy, or something that's so easy that is extremely low stress, then that removes a lot of risk and makes this strategy a lot more feasible. Healthcare costs are the biggest risk of early retirement in America, because if you rely on government subsidies like the Affordable Care Act, you could easily be getting rug pulled out of it. And in this BaristaFIRE strategy, you're not paying $1,500 a month for private plan health insurance, you have employer coverage. Even if it's part-time, it can still be feasible for someone who's relatively healthy. And BaristaFIRE is appealing because you get the freedom of early retirement and you're not locked into a 40-hour-a-week corporate job. You still have some structure, you have some income, you have some benefits. And for a lot of people, this is just the sweet spot for it. But again, this is something that I am personally not going to be doing. Now, the strategy 3 is actually CoastFIRE. CoastFIRE is a different mindset entirely. Instead of retiring early as possible, you front load your savings and then coast the rest of the way. The goal is to save aggressively in your 20s and early 30s. And let's say you hit like $200,000 to $400,000 by like age 30. You can stop contributing to your 401ks, your Roth IRAs, and you just let the compounding do the rest of the work. That $300,000, let's say you save at like 32, will easily grow over $1 million by the time you need it during retirement, which could hit $1 million as soon as like 55, assuming average market returns. And in the meantime, you downshift, you take a lower stress job, you work fewer hours, you stop worrying about maximizing your salary because you don't need to. Your retirement is already funded. You just need to cover your current living expenses until you get there. This is appealing if you're already burnt out, but not quite ready for full-on retirement. You've built enough of like a nest egg so you can just relax. You can take any job you actually enjoy, even if it pays less. You can travel, spend time with your family, pursue hobbies, all while knowing your future retirement is completely secured. And CoastFIRE isn't about escaping work entirely. It's more about escaping the pressure of aggressive saving and career building. Now for this fourth strategy, this one is going to be called Geo-Arbitrage, but within the United States. I know in my past videos, I was talking about Thailand, Mexico, and some other countries, and we can still get into that. But if you want to retire early and stay in America, Geo-Arbitrage within the United States is completely possible. You move to a small city in the South, Midwest, where cost of living is dramatically lower than major metro areas. Your target net worth would be like $500,000 to $1 million. Your annual spending will drop because let's say you worked in New York or San Francisco or California in general even, or just in the Northeast. You're not going to be paying those New York City, those San Francisco or California prices. You're going to be paying like North Carolina, Tennessee, Montana, Idaho, like prices. You're not going to be paying these major cities anymore. So you can do this with like $700,000 invested with a nice 4% withdrawal rate. That's like $28,000-ish a year. You own your home already. So you would have to have a paid off home with this one also. Your housing costs would stay minimal. You live modestly, but comfortably. The advantage here is that you stay in the United States. You don't have to deal with visa issues, foreign healthcare systems, or being far from family even. A domestic flight can be incredibly cheap. You just strategically choose where you live based off cost of living instead of the career opportunities. And a lot of these smaller cities can have great quality of life. They have access to nature, lower stress, strong local communities. You're not sacrificing everything to retire early. You're just opting out of expensive urban living. I would recommend this strategy for like the tiny house on a plot of land in the middle of like wherever America, which is kind of similar to one of the strategies I talked about earlier, but again, totally feasible and possible. Now, strategy 5 is going to be a completely different strategy that I haven't even talked about on this channel, which is going to be called house hacking and rental income. So this strategy is for people who want passive income streams beyond just the stock market investing. So the idea is that you use real estate to generate cash flow to cover your living expenses. The classic examples like buying a duplex, live in one unit, rent out the other, or you buy a single family home and rent out a room, or you rent out like a part of the house as like an apartment kind of esque thing. I know there's a couple of Airbnbs that even do this. The rental income would cover your mortgage, and eventually your property will be like completely free almost and clear of any expenses. Let's say you have 2 rental properties. Each one generates like $1,000 to like $1,500 a month in like cash flow after expenses. That could be $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year. Combine that with like investment growth or the property value growing. That could be another like $10,000, $20,000 a year, depending on what you're invested into, obviously. You could easily achieve $40,000 to $50,000 annual income without having a traditional job. The downside is that this requires a lot of work. You're dealing with tenants, maintenance, property management, and if you want, you can hire property managers, and this can be a powerful way to diversify those income streams. But personally, this is not for me because I actually do put a lot of value on traveling abroad. Now, strategy 6 is kind of like a very Gen Z strategy. I'm not going to lie. This is like the new meta for early retirement, I feel like. And it's what a lot of like young FIRE creators are like doing, including what I want to do to some extent. Instead of fully retiring from work, you build digital income streams that generate enough money to cover your expenses. You can do YouTube YouTube, freelancing, there's like online courses, consulting, even affiliate marketing, pretty much any online way of making money. This will create income that's location independent and mostly passive, or at least like semi-passive. You could do this with like 600K invested, which will generate you like $24,000 a year. Then you make another like $20,000 or $30,000 from like content creation, which can only be like 2K a month, which isn't too crazy to make online. Like that could bring you over $50,000 a year, enough to live comfortably in a low cost area or even a mid-tier city. And the beauty of content creation is that you're not like truly retired in the traditional sense. You still have complete freedom, but you work on projects you care about. You control your schedule. You can live anywhere. And if your content income grows, which it absolutely can, you can increase your lifestyle or save even more aggressively and gain even more freedom back, or just live more luxuriously. I feel like this is a path that a lot of modern FIRE people are trying to take because it blends financial independence with meaningful work. And you're not just sitting on a beach all day doing nothing. You're actually building something on your own terms. Now, this hybrid strategy I'm going to go over, this strategy blends living in the US with spending significant time abroad. You maintain US residency. Maybe you keep an address with like a family or rent a cheap place in a low cost state, but you spend like 6 months or even more in places like Thailand, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia. Some places in even Eastern Europe are totally feasible. Your net worth target would be like 500 to 800K, depending on which country you want to go to or which city you even live in. Again, the US is massive and has completely different economies all over, so this could just be a massive range. When you're in the US, you spend probably like $40,000 a year. But when you live abroad, you spend $25,000 a year. By splitting your time, you're averaging $30,000 to $35,000 a year, which makes early retirement much more achievable. The advantage is that you get the best of both worlds. You can visit family, access US healthcare when needed, maintain ties to American culture if you even want that, but you also get the adventure and lower cost of living abroad for half a year. This requires a lot of planning, a lot of flexibility, but for people who enjoy traveling and don't need to be rooted in one place, it's a very powerful strategy. Now, we're going to go over my plan, which is going to be pretty much Geo-Arbitrage mixed with like the side hustle FIRE portion of it. So here's what I'm actually doing. And this is the real like unfiltered version. It's not completely polished yet. And this is what I'm building towards currently. My goal is to reach $700,000 to $1 million in net worth. Ideally $1 million just for the margin of safety. I want to be able to retire from corporate work by my early 30s and live off investments plus side income from passion projects. And here's how I'll break it down. I live frugally now, well below my means. I save as much as I possibly can while still maintaining my sanity and social life, obviously. I stay invested in the market, aiming for about like $700,000 to $900,000 target, but realistically, I still want that million. Once I reach that number, I keep an address in the United States, preferably in a state with easy access to affordable healthcare. This is critical for me because I have Crohn's disease. I need consistent access to healthcare, and I can't risk being in a country where I can't get treatment if I have a flare-up or something. For the majority of the year, I'll be bouncing between lower cost countries, let's say like Thailand, Vietnam, Mexico, even Malaysia. There's like the Philippines if I even want to do that. Whatever makes sense at the time. I'll keep my expenses as low as possible while managing side hustles and small business projects. I won't be fully retired from work, but I'll be retired from corporate work. I'll be doing passion projects that generate income, maybe $10,000 to $20,000 a year even, just to offset some living expenses and travel costs. When I need to be in the United States for like healthcare, family events, holidays, whatever, I'll rely on my family. I can stay with siblings, cousins for a short period of time. I don't need my own place here. I just need access. For health insurance, I'm planning to use Affordable Care Act subsidies, which I know is risky, but at my income level, living off investments and side hustle income, I'll qualify for subsidized coverage. That keeps healthcare costs manageable. Now, here's the elephant in the room. I know what you're going to say. ACA subsidies are set to expire this year. If that happens and nothing replaces them, this plan gets a lot harder. Without subsidies, health insurance in the United States for some with pre-existing health conditions could easily break over 4 figures. It could cost $12,000 to $18,000 a year just for insurance, which would blow up my budget entirely. But here's what I think. Long term, the US cannot sustain a system where healthcare just bankrupts people. It already does. And we have those subsidies. Medical debt is already the #1 cause of bankruptcy in America. If the Affordable Care Act subsidies disappear and nothing replaces them, it's going to put a massive strain on consumers and the economy, a recessionary level of strain. So I think, or maybe I'm just hopeful, that something will have to be put in place, whether it's universal healthcare, a modified ACA, or some middle ground solution, I don't know. But I don't think we can go back to pre-Affordable Care Act health insurance costs for long without having serious economic consequences. That's a risk I'm taking, and if it doesn't work out, I'll have to adjust and figure out something else in the future. Maybe I spend more time abroad in countries with affordable healthcare. Maybe I pursue residency somewhere with universal healthcare coverage. I don't know yet, but I'm building this plan with the assumption that US healthcare will remain accessible at a reasonable cost for people at my income level. The other part of my plan is the side hustles. I'm working on building income streams right now. This YouTube channel, there's freelance work I want to get into, maybe even consulting or some like digital products down the line. The goal is to even just make $10,000 to $20,000 a year in income from these projects by the time I retire from corporate work. That reduces the amount I need to withdraw from investments and gives me a nice buffer in addition to my other buffer. Honestly, I don't know if this will all work out as planned, but that's the point of documenting the process. I'm not pretending I've already have it all figured out. I'm showing you what I'm doing, the risk I'm taking, and how I'm thinking through these challenges. So yeah, that's the 7 strategies for early retirement within America, plus my own personal plan. The truth is, there's no one right way to do this. It depends on your income, your expenses, your risk tolerance, what kind of lifestyle you actually want, where you even live, where you work currently. Like LeanFIRE can work if you're extremely frugal and you don't really care about traveling or put extreme value on it. BaristaFIRE works if you want a security of like the part-time work and always have something to do. CoastFIRE works if you're burnt out but not ready to fully retire yet. Geo-Arbitrage works if you're willing to relocate. Rental income works if you don't mind being a landlord. And CoastFIRE works if you want to build something. And international living are for those that want to escape the system in the United States. For me, it's a hybrid approach of kind of all of these strategies. Extreme savings, geo-arbitrage, side hustles, strategic healthcare planning. It's not perfect and there's a lot of risks, but it's what makes sense for my situation. If you're trying to retire early, figure out which of these strategies aligns with your goals. Don't just copy what some random people online are doing. Build a plan that works for you. And I don't want you to even copy my plan. My plan is not foolproof. My plan covers my needs, my desires, my goals in life. But if you're interested in this stuff, early retirement, financial independence, strategic life planning, consider joining the Discord community, link in the description. We've got a few hundred people in there talking about exactly these topics, sharing real strategies, and supporting each other through the process. We even have people already doing exactly what I want to do and living in other countries and are fully retired and have that FIRE freedom. I'm not here to sell you anything, but if you want to support this channel, there is a buy me a coffee link in the description down below. I'm just here to document my journey and hope it helps someone figure out their own path. That is going to be all for today. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button, subscribe if you're new, and comment down below what your plan is. What do you want to achieve in life? What are your goals for early retirement? Do you even want to retire early? Let me know. But yeah, I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.